I have come to cast fire upon the earth, and how I wish it were already ablaze. I have a baptism with which to be baptized, and what constraint am I under until it is completed? Did you think that I have come to bring peace to the earth? No, I tell you, but rather division. From now on, 5 in one household will be divided, 3 against 2, and 2 against 3. They will be divided, father against son, and son against father, mother against daughter, and daughter against mother, mother-in-law against her daughter-in-law, and daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. He also said to the crowds, when you see a cloud rising in the west, you immediately say, it's going to rain, and so it happens. And when you see the south wind blowing, you say, there will be scorching heat, and it happens. You hypocrites, you know how to interpret the appearance of the earth and sky. Why do you not know how to interpret the present time? The gospel of the Lord. Therefore, I like that word. And it's a good word to watch for when you're reading the Bible. Therefore, it usually means that the author is going to make a really important point, and that point will be based on what they've been saying just before the therefore. So you best have been paying attention. We've been reading Hebrews 11. We read some last week, read some today. It's often referred to as the roll call of faith. I'd forgotten that it had some kind of ookie stuff in it there that Carson was reading, but we won't be talking about that. So, in the roll call of faith, the author lists people whose life have been a strong witness to God. And by faith, these people have done remarkable things. By their example, we are called to continue our own journey of faith. And this journey, which can be a struggle, is to be entered into while looking to Jesus. It's important to notice that the author uses the name here, not the Messiah, not the Christ, not even the Son of God or the Son of Man or any of those other titles, but Jesus. They're talking about the historical earthly Jesus who was one of us, tested as we are and subject to suffering and death. So why all those other heroes of the faith? That great cloud. What can those people that the author, some actually think it might have been Priscilla, so I shouldn't say he, that they have listed all these people. Last week we heard mostly about Abraham, and the verses we skipped over mention Isaac, Jacob, and Moses. So let's look at the list in today's reading and see what they have to teach us. There are the Hebrew people. They came out of slavery. They passed through the Red Sea as on dry land. They also whined about everything on the way and built a golden calf when Moses wasn't looking. And Rahab, mentioned in the genealogy of Jesus, helped Joshua bring down the walls of Jericho by hiding the men sent to spy out the city. And as the text mentions, she was a prostitute. Then there's Gideon, a judge of Israel. He did many great deeds in the name of the Lord, but he asked for repeated miraculous signs before he would do anything, just so he could believe that he was actually hearing from God. Then Barak, he was a great general who led the Israelite army to victory over Jabin and his armies, but he questions God's call to battle, and the real victory, the capture and death of the general Sisera, was given to a woman, Jael the Kenite. And then there's Samson, another of the judges, who had a weak spot for a woman named Delilah. And Jephthah, another general, who to celebrate a victory, made a rash vow that ended up him having to sacrifice his daughter to God. And David. What can we say about David? Except maybe Bathsheba, her husband Uriah. David was not a perfect man, but he was a great king and a great witness of the faith. This is an interesting list of exemplary faith examples. because it includes people who had strong faith and many failings. And that is why, that is the important thing about this list, what those people can teach us. Jesus may be the perfect example of faith and service to God, but we are not Jesus. We can never be Jesus, and we should never expect to be Jesus, who was perfect. So what about that word, therefore? It's kind of a turning point. The author says, therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, there's that cloud of witnesses, and referring to the imperfect people is who he's talking about, the people we just talked about. So who are our cloud of witnesses? Who are the people who have shown us the way? They aren't just found in Scripture. Throughout my life, I mentioned my godparents, Bob and Margaret Paulson. There have been people who've demonstrated a strength of faith that has taught me how to carry on in difficult times. The pastor who baptized my family ended up being my dad's best friend, which boundary-wise is not really looked positively on these days, but this was the 1950s. His daughter was about my age, and so we became very close friends. People put pastors on pedestals back then, but I had the opportunity to see Pastor Hoff not just as a pastor, but as a friend to my father and as a father to my friend Stephanie and her two brothers, his children. And so I got to see him as a more human person. It's had a huge effect on my pastoral role. He still influences me to this day. So who has been part of the great cloud of witnesses, I should pick this up when I say that, in your life? Who has influenced your life of faith? It might be a parent, a spouse, a friend, maybe even a pet whose unconditional love carried you through a difficult time. How have they influenced you? Was it a big moment? One that changed the direction of your life? Was it someone who was just a quiet, constant presence? Someone whose life spoke of a deep, abiding, lifelong trust in God? Was it someone you met casually? Maybe you don't even really know them. You might not have gotten their name, but if you're like me, you have conversations with strangers. And they sometimes witness of great strength of faith, even when we're not talking about God. Atonement has their own great cloud. And if we're talking about the saints that have gone before us, it has grown quite a bit in the 12 years that I have been here. People who have claimed the promise of their baptism, but who are still present here with us. Their presence joins us each Sunday with worship in this space and as we live our lives. I'm thinking of, and I probably missed some, Barbara Hanson, Ed McColgan, Janet Houchins, she used to sit right there, Curtin Jam Heimlich, Eileen Larson, Laddie Parrish, Del Feistrom. Oh, he and Nelson Pradale, I miss them so much in choir. Herb and Lorraine Sievers, Lottie Moss, Dennis Ahmet, Hilda Detterville, Doug and Muriel Ane, Ilsa Wilson, Ottilie Singer. Some, the new members and newer worshipers, will not ever have met or maybe even have heard of. And some weren't present very often during the end of their lives. Ottilie went a long time without being able to come to church, but she worshiped in her retirement community, and I saw her occasionally for communion. I don't have Edith Rosenberger on here. I have to write her down.
And Roland.
Well, we should write Roland down, even though he's not one from the last 12 years.
Oh, okay.
I'll write him down anyway. So these people shaped this church. Now, with these people gone, but with their presence with us, so we have a connection to that past, and with your pastor leaving, you have an opportunity to find a new shape and direction for your church that is informed by the witness of all these people that have gone before us who are no longer here, and informed by the things that we all did together. And it's going to be very exciting, but we'll talk about that more later. Right now, I have homework. And this is serious homework. This is not this casual, think about it when you get home homework that I give you sometimes that probably a lot of you don't do. But this is important homework. Who has been a witness in your life? Who placed you on the path of faith? Who accompanied you along the way? I invite you to take some time over the coming weeks to make a list of your own great cloud of witnesses. And I'd like you to focus on those who are gone, but who still live on in your life of faith. I'm probably going to think of Pastor Hoff and a couple others at Mount Olive. And if you have a photograph of this person, bring me a photograph of one or two of your personal faith heroes. Put them in an envelope if they're small, or a Ziploc bag to protect them. Write your name on it to make sure it gets back to you, and the name of the person the photo is of. You might want to put that on a Post-it note on the back. I will scan and print the photos, and I will return them to you unharmed. And starting on September 21st, which is when we switch to our fall worship mode, I'll go back to wearing an alb probably, if it's not terribly hot. We will be sharing, these people will be literally surrounding us. I'm going to get some foam, soft core foam core poster board, the heavy kind, and mount these pictures on them, and they will be around the sanctuary. And so as we move through September and October and focus in towards All Saints' Day on November the 2nd, we will be surrounded by this cloud of witnesses. And then we will celebrate them all on All Saints' Day, which is a day where we traditionally celebrate those who have claimed the promise of their baptism. I stole that phrase from a friend of mine in First Call Theological Education, Tim, I think, and I've been using it ever since. And we will celebrate those people. But remember, as you're thinking about this great cloud of witnesses, the ones in your own life, remember also the leaders that we talked about at the beginning of the message. The people who are human beings, the people who are imperfect, who had failings, some of them pretty serious failings, people who were not perfect, but who still had an influence on your faith. So don't look for someone perfect in your life. Look for someone who influenced you, who has gone before. I know there are some complicated influences in there for me that I'll have to ponder very carefully. So they don't need to be perfect to be a hero of the faith. Amen.